And welcome into the Friday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Joe Rexrode, fresh off day number 2 of the SEC tournament here in Nashville. Rexrode, how we doing? Are we surviving? What's going on?
Doing good, doing all right. Great hoops, that's for sure. Wish Kentucky or Oklahoma, Kentucky. Wish that one wasn't so late, but great game.
Yep, it was a late night last night, no doubt about that. Keyser, good morning. How are you?
All by my lonesome, but I'm doing great, guys. Glad to be with us this morning.
Wow, what a lonely time for Nick Keyser today on the program. Speaking of the SEC tournament, by the way, tune into 102.5, 106.3 The Game for updates of the SEC men's basketball tournament today, presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle and ATV. Rexrode, this is your time of year, baby. Just a lot of good basketball going on out there. You're the nation's leading bracketologist. This is your time to shine.
Right. Yeah. Nation's leading bracketologist. Yeah. It's tell you what, doing a daily bracket off this stuff is a lot of it. It's interesting. I guess I kind of understand why most people who do this only do this. So, although I guess that's not always true. It's all Lenardi does. I guess DeCourcy does it for the sporting news. So, but it's pretty time consuming. I gotta say.
Yeah, I can see where it might be. We will get deep into the SEC tournament a little bit later in the show. The Vols in action today, as well as they continue to try to hunt down a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the program. Teron Davenport will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Normally joined by Stilly on Friday mornings at 7 o'clock. He joined us yesterday. So if you missed that, check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, thegamenashville.com. And Joe, one name that Stilly did bring up yesterday was Brandon Allen, and he is now the newest member of the Tennessee Titans. Brandon Allen has agreed to a 1-year deal at the quarterback position with Tennessee, which I think, Joe, points to him being the backup quarterback, or at least being in competition to be the backup quarterback when they draft Cam Ward. We'll get into the Cam Ward part of this here in just a few minutes with some interesting comments that Charles Robinson had on our program yesterday. But right now, the quarterback room for the Titans as we sit here today on March the 14th is Brandon Allen and Will Levis. And I was watching Kuharski's live stream of his podcast that he does when this news came out, Joe, and just the look of total disgust on his face of the signing of Brandon Allen was something to behold. PK, not a big fan of the Brandon Allen signing.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So this is Jared says he likes it. I mean, it's a backup, I don't know. What do we really have to go on with this guy?
Not a ton. He has gotten in and started some games and it hasn't gone well, but that's typically the story when the backup quarterback gets in and plays games.
I mean, it is funny to me, like, and I saw you tweeted this about Mason Rudolph. Like, it appears that the Titans did try to re-sign him.
Yes.
The Steelers want him back. They got him back. I mean, I understand, like, we've seen a lot of Mason Rudolph, and he's not a starter. So, you don't want Mason. How anybody would be more excited about Brandon Allen as your backup than Mason Rudolph? Again, that's just because you don't have the information. If he had the same opportunities, it very well could be a lot worse than what we've seen from Mason Rudolph, right? But, I mean, it's a backup quarterback. I mean, for a bad team. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess now there's the thought that from some that I saw yesterday, Joe, that it could be Brandon Allen and Will Levis in competition for the backup spot. Like, to me, this just kind of tells you that Will Levis is probably going to be out of here. That's the way I view it. Like, Brandon Allen has been with Brian Callahan before, and Brandon Allen is kind of like your veteran. He's 32. He's been around. I think, he's not Joe Flacco, or he's not the second coming of Tom Brady out there that's been a starting quarterback in the league for a while, that has all this wealth of knowledge of all these games that he started, that can pass along that information to your quarterback that you draft coming up at number 1 overall. But like, to me, I read this yesterday as, okay, so Brandon Allen is going to be like the mentor for when Cam Ward comes in, and we'll see if Will Levis is either on the team or if they ship him off by the time training camp rolls around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of that mind too. I mean, I guess I could see it playing out, however, with Will Levis, but then it gets into, because there was some talk of Wentz too, but I guess if as it appears to be, the plan is to draft this quarterback, then I don't know. I don't know enough about Brandon Allen. I guess I would think that like someone a little more experienced might be a little better as QB2 with the rookie quarterback. But again, I can't sit here and pretend like I know other than what he's done or hasn't done on the field much about Brandon Allen.
No, I can't either. And look, there are some that still in the immediate aftermath of this thought, oh gosh, they're going with Will Levis. Like, Will Levis is going to be the starting quarterback again next year. And we're going to get to some comments from Charles Robinson on our show here in just a few minutes about that. I don't understand why that's becoming more and more like a thought with Titans fans. Like, just pay attention to some of the things that Brian Callahan and the front office have said. Like, Will Levis is not going to be starting quarterback for this team next year. I guess I could be wrong, and I could just be totally misreading the situation, but it seems pretty clear to me that they're done with Will Levis.
Yeah, I think that's been made, gently, not, they're not going to come out and say that, but I think that's been made pretty clear. Brian Callahan's asked about him, and he'll say like he's working hard and all that. Of course, I mean, every single player in this organization under contract, you hope that they have a great offseason, that they're better coming back next year. But yeah, it's pretty obvious. You could string together. I mean, I don't know, has someone done that? You can string together all the comments from the offseason, then do little swooshes between them, and you would have a pretty clear picture of, Will Levis not being the starting quarterback next year. I guess, I guess the competition for a backup, but I don't know. To me, when you go draft a Cam Ward, it's better, I think, for all parties, just for your guy, the last guy that you just hoped would be your franchise quarterback, to be somewhere else.
I agree. I totally agree. You brought up Mason Rudolph. So he signs a 2-year, $8 million deal with the Steelers. And this is what Mike Garafolo yesterday put out there. He said Rudolph mulled multiple offers, including a return to the Titans, but was motivated to head back to Pittsburgh. I mean, he talked about having offers. Like, offers is different than interest. So offers, including a return to the Titans, but was motivated to head back to Pittsburgh. So number one, like Mason Rudolph back in Pittsburgh, where I guess they're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. Like, first off, is this not the most Aaron Rodgers thing ever to like just hold this entire thing up the last 4 days like he has? And secondly, I guess it's going to be, if he does decide to go there, the Aaron Rodgers QB1, Mason Rudolph QB2 show.
Yeah, I guess. And so if he doesn't, then it's Russ and Rudolph.
Ugh, I guess.
I guess. I mean,
Jameis still out there.
Hey, there's some Steelers fans who have texted us, last year, who swear that Mason Rudolph should have been their starter. So I mean, maybe some of that faction will be happy today in Pittsburgh. But yeah, again, you look at the deal he signed. I mean, he's a fine backup. I mean, he had some bad plays with the Titans last year, for sure. So I
get in line.
What's that?
Get in line. A lot of people did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would have been. I mean, look, I think he would have been a better choice at backup than Brandon Allen, but some of that again is like you've got to be thinking in terms of helping your rookie quarterback that you're drafting, right? Unless that's not happening.
Well, let me tell you, if that's not happening, at this point, I've gotten to, if they're not drafting Cam Ward, look at that quarterback room right now. It's going to be a long year next year. Well, we can go ahead and start beginning the conversation of the number 1 overall pick in 2026 if they're not drafting a quarterback right now.
Yeah. And, drafting the quarterback, who knows how good that'd be. But I mean, obviously, completely changes everything in terms of interest and at least having hope. So yeah, I mean, it looks like the events of recent weeks have swung them in that direction. It's hard to explain what we've seen here in free agency any other way.
Yep. I got one texter that says, with the free agent signings we've had so far, I do not see Brian Callahan surviving after this year. And I think that's unfair. We'll see. I mean, they have revamped the offensive line. We'll see how effective the revamping of the offensive line ends up being. But again, that's where, like, if you draft the quarterback, then that's where I think the evaluation changes on everybody, right? Like, it's okay, well, you've got the new franchise quarterback. What sort of steps would he take from the beginning of the season in year one to the end of the season? And how does that affect Brian Callahan? Because look, I do think if you're drafting a quarterback, what you don't really want to have happen is to have him come in and play in year one and then immediately fire the coach and then go hire another coach and another system for him in year two. Not saying it won't happen. I'm just saying it's probably not ideal.
No, it's what bad franchises like the Chicago Bears do over and over again.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you know, if this is if how it looks is how it's going to be, then I think that if you see enough promise from the quarterback, there's other parts of it too. I mean, Brian Callahan has even talked about how he wants to be, maybe a little more involved in other aspects and all this stuff. I mean, it's the entirety of the product. But I think if Cam Ward, if that's who they draft, I mean, again, I'm here for draft night. Shedeur Sanders getting the call that'd be and the meltdown from some that would ensue. But if the quarterback looks good or at least promising, then that to me kind of takes the bottom line off Callahan, or at least I think it should. Again, unless everything else is just so bad that like he's just not a CEO, and that's what they determine, But I feel like this gives him the quarterback development. That's again the big selling point with him as a potential demonstration next season.
Let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Ed in New Jersey. Ed, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. So that was pretty much my point. I think what you were alluding to, Joe. To me, and maybe it's wishful thinking, boy, I got to think that Callahan's got more rope with Cam Ward, because a smart franchise, how would you draft your rookie franchise quarterback and only give him 1 year in a system knowing you got a lame duck coach? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know if it's just wishful thinking or logics, but you got to give this for the benefit of the kid. Don't you got to give Callahan 2 years and give the kid 2 years, barring a catastrophe next year? I think it's got to mean a little more rope for Callahan, in my opinion.
Thanks for the call, Ed. Appreciate it. I think,
yeah.
I mean, I think I agree with that, Joe, from the standpoint of barring a catastrophe. And then we get into, okay, well, what's a catastrophe? Like if they're 3-14 again next year, is that a catastrophe? Like what, how does it look on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah. Are they 3-14? But how is it? Obviously, like, did they fix the offensive line? Are they 3-14? And they didn't do enough on defense, but their offense looks better. The quarterback shows promise. They're scoring points. They're in a bunch of close games. They obviously have to have another big offseason and focus on the other side of the ball. Like there's so many different ways. It's living through the experience, that I agree with Ed. Like, I mean, organizationally, that's how they should be looking at it, right? I mean, if you're looking at it like some on the outside are, like Callahan's just a lame duck coach, then I think you're already doing a disservice to your quarterback.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We're off and running on Robby and Rexrode. Some interesting comments from Charles Robinson on our show on the Cam Ward front yesterday. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I started the process. I would have told you I thought, based on conversations I had coming out of the combine, that potentially they were leaning away from Cam Ward. But, they signed Dan Moore, and it just, I think that's shifted, honestly. I really do. I think it's shifted for, Cam Ward's camp. I think it's shifted for when you look at just how the Titans have prepared, conversations that I had after the Moore signing, which were just, look, they're not going out and adding a tackle at that financial price point to protect an old guy next year. They're not doing it to protect Will Levis next year. What's sort of materialized for me over the last few days is just that, the Levis experience is really over there. There's no veteran out there that they're fishing around with right now. And that, if anything, when you talk to, Cam Ward's corner of the planet, it's just, okay, I'm going to end up in Tennessee right now, or they're going to deal me, they're going to deal the top overall pick to the Giants, and I'm going to be a Giant. I think that's really how Cam Ward's camp's approaching this right now. That's the two teams that he's really looking at. And of those two teams, the setup sure as heck looks like it's the Titans that are preparing to take him at that number 1 overall pick.
That's Charles Robinson on with us yesterday on Robby and Rexrode. Really good stuff from Charles, as there is every week here on the program. Check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast. So, Joe, he was talking about Cam Ward, the Titans, and said yesterday that, after the combine, if he was forced to guess, he probably would have thought that the Titans weren't going to be in on Cam Ward and that Cam Ward was going to be somewhere else. And he feels like there's been a shift on that over the past few weeks here. And that Cam Ward, obviously, when you look at what the Titans have done so far in free agency and the lack of aggression of pursuit of some veteran stopgap quarterback to come in and be your starter, combined with what he said there in that clip from people he's talked to, he feels like the Will Levis part of this is over in Tennessee. Like, everything is adding up right now to Cam Ward being number 1 overall. So, first off, what did you make of what Charles had to say on our show yesterday and kind of the process that he went through of where he feels like the Titans could be with Cam Ward right now? And how do you view, I guess, a question that some Titans fans have thrown out there, like, is it a little too obvious? Like, does it look too obvious that the Titans are about to take Cam Ward at number 1 overall?
I mean, I guess, but again, like, what's the alternative? I just don't see how anybody's signing up for. I mean, Borgonzi and his 2 guys he brought in are brand new, but so I guess, like, you could talk long term. Chad Brinker's tried to sell long term publicly, and I guess to Amy, but I don't see how you try to trot this product out without. I mean, again, the rookie quarterback is probably, when it comes down to it, a fan base gets energized by that. Usually it doesn't work out, but, like, you energize a fan base by that. If you, if you were to sign one of these viable veterans, okay, well, then you're a little bit more, you're just not sure that this is quite the rookie crop you want for you, but you're still trying to be competitive. One thing about Charles, I didn't totally agree with what he was saying yesterday on the, like, signing Dan Moore is some signal that they're drafting I mean, to me, you protect any quarterback you have in this league, don't you? I don't really buy that line of thinking, but obviously Charles is, that's the guesswork, I guess. Whereas, obviously, and you can tell from Charles there, certainly on the Cam side of things, they feel much more now like Tennessee is in on Cam, as opposed to previously where it was kind of like, there was a lot of expectation around the league that the Titans were trying to bail out of one. And I don't think you're seeing much of that anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to me to do it, to have a terrible team and have no hope at that position next year, other than, well, there'll be better ones later. I think that's a hard sell when you've gone through the seasons you just went to the last 2 years.
Well, I brought up the odds the other day on FanDuel Sportsbook of number 1, Cam Ward being the guy selected at number 1 overall. And those odds were very high that Cam Ward was going to be number 1 overall. And then you looked at like which team was going to select number 1 overall. The Titans were the favorite, but it was minus 155. And I want to say, Joe, we talked about that on like Tuesday of this week. Well, here we are on Friday morning, and I'm looking at the odds right now, and the Titans are minus 250 to draft number 1 overall. So they've gone from minus 155 to minus 250 in like 3 days here. And obviously, look, the market reacts to the other moves that are going on. It feels like the obvious move right now is that Cam Ward is going to be a Tennessee Titan, and that's where they're going with the number 1 overall pick. And later in the show, we're going to get to, how that could possibly affect how much they're able to add at, wide receiver and other positions like that this offseason. But like the market is reacting to what's going on here too, Joe, of it's looking more and more like the Titans are number 1 and Cam Ward's their guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what I was asking Charles yesterday about, could the Giants do anything
Right.
to, if they're that, because obviously they are also in a quarterback bind right now, but man, you'd still, even then you'd be signing up for, I guess then in that case, there's your Levis scenario based on what we see now, I guess Levis is around right now in case someone, it's like, well, we just can't refuse that offer. But I feel like by the time you get to, and who knows where it is now, like Charles said too yesterday, it's an important thing to keep in mind. You may have someone in this organization 100% on Cam and someone else who's about 50-50, and different people have different viewpoints, but you probably get so much momentum toward the idea of let's get this guy, this is the future, let's build around him, that then it's almost like you're not even thinking about offers,
Right.
from the Giants. I mean, at this point, they probably have a pretty decent idea of what the range would be, and it may not be all that great.
Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
So, dude, I went to Blue Ridge Mountain, Georgia. I don't know if you guys have ever been. And I spent the better part of my week there, like while all this Titan stuff's kind of rolling in. Spotty service, you would see like Dan Moore would pop in, and then Sebastian Joseph Day would pop in, and you're like, dude, you really need a mountain to help level that out. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever had an opportunity to do like half vacation, half work, but like you really need it, especially with this team. Like, I'm thinking of Cam Ward, and I'm like, dude, I'm glad we're loading him up with all these superstars. Like, give this guy a real opportunity. Like, I just feel bad for him. Like, he's supposed to be good. He could probably be good in the right situation, but we're so depleted, man. I get it. When you're at the top of the draft, sometimes it happens like that, but I would figure out a different way, find a different time to take your quarterback, man. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I feel like they've botched this. I would have done it way different. And I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to sell tickets. I went and sat through that stupid presentation. Like, you got to have something. You got to have somebody's picture to put up there, but God, dude, you're giving this guy no shot. And that's the part that upsets me.
Thank you for the call, Adam. A couple thoughts I want to get to on that, Joe, and a lot of different questions and thoughts on the Cam Ward front on the text line we'll address coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Taking your thoughts on Cam Ward and the Titans. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Joe, a couple things to get to on that front. Kind of reacting to Adam from Portland's call the last time out. And then a couple questions from the text line I want to get to. Like, I guess we'll see. Like, there's somebody on the text line asking about, like, we're talking about drafting best player available. How could Cam Ward possibly be best player available? Well, I don't think he is, but maybe the Titans do, right? Like, I have no idea what the Titans' evaluation of Cam Ward is. Maybe they think that he's going to be an absolute superstar. And by the way, they haven't drafted him yet, so maybe they're not going to take him. I don't know. Maybe this is a bunch of posturing, and they're trying to get the offer to go up from New York or whoever else. It's hard for me to believe that based on the other things that they've done at quarterback right now, but maybe that is the case. I just you've addressed the offensive line. We talked about it heading into the offseason. In this offseason, right? Like, if you're drafting a quarterback at number 1 overall, it means you're not trading out, and at the moment you don't have a third round pick. So you're talking a quarterback at number 1. You've got the opportunity with things as they currently stand to address edge rusher or wide receiver or whatever it is at 35, and then you're not picking again to the 4th round, right? So you just there's not a ton of draft capital that you currently have at your disposal right now if you're the Titans, particularly if you're sticking and picking at number 1. We talked about the free agent wide receivers in this offseason. We're going to get to that a little bit more specifically here in just a few minutes, but it's not a great free agent pool. So right now, you're looking at wide receiver, you're looking at edge rusher. There's a lot of holes on this roster. I think this was always going to be more than a one-off season fix for the entire roster here.
Yeah, exactly. I understand the idea. I highly doubt that the Titans have Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I guess we'll just stick with Cam Ward as the best player on the board. I highly doubt that. They'd be vastly different than basically anybody who studies the draft and ranks players. So they'd be like a lot of teams, though. This happens fairly often where it's like you got to get a quarterback. The need is there. So who's the best quarterback right now that you can get in this draft? I don't think that's a good way to go about things. Doesn't mean it won't work out. It could. Yeah. The Titans have really it has not worked out in terms of drafting quarterbacks since they were the Houston Oilers, and they got Steve McNair, and they gave him basically 2 years to sit. And that's that's a comment that I'm missing here. Here you go, from unnamed texter. Can you please explain why the trend is to throw a rookie QB out there and hope he gets it? If Callahan takes pride in developing QBs, why not draft a QB behind a veteran to let him develop? Citing Green Bay as an example. Yeah, look, it's both things are happening. It's not just that's not the only trend. The Green Bay just did it with Jordan Love. So if you can do that, I think that's great. If you can do Patrick Mahomes and have Alex Smith, I think that's great. And that's why we even talked about some of these other veterans who are actual starting level quarterbacks, being here and then still drafting a quarterback. But obviously, if this is how it's going to work out, I suppose, again, if is Levis around, is it possible that Levis wins the starting job at the beginning of the year and then it just gets replaced? Are they, if Levis is here, what are they doing with reps in camp? They're going to give him split reps. I don't think I understand they've improved the offensive line, but I still don't think it's a great situation for a rookie quarterback.
Well, we've gotten a couple questions about why not sit? If you drafted Cam Ward, why would you not be more aggressive in the offseason of getting a quarterback in here that can play while Cam Ward sits? And I guess my reaction to that would be this. Are there examples that you can find of a quarterback sitting that it's worked out really well? Mahomes sat his first year. It's worked out pretty darn well. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years. It's worked out pretty well. Jordan Love set for 3 years, and it's been good so far. We'll see how he continues to progress. Now, look, C.J. Stroud came in and was immediately ready to play and looked awesome. Jay Daniels came in, was immediately ready to play and looked awesome. Like, would Jaden Daniels have benefited from sitting? It's hard to make that argument right now based on what we saw him do in his first year. So, look, I also believe, as much as I do like the idea of your quarterback sitting and being able to kind of learn with other guys around him and not having the pressure to play immediately, we have also seen recent examples of some guys don't need that. Like, there are some quarterbacks that come in that are immediately ready to play. Is Cam Ward that guy? I have no idea. That's where the evaluation of that part of it from the Titans comes down. A couple things on that front. You rarely see that with the first overall pick. Like, very rarely is the first overall pick coming in and sitting out games. And number two, like, I think there are quarterbacks, even though you're trying to project long-term what they are, I think their readiness to play in the NFL immediately, Joe, varies. Like, Jordan Love absolutely needed to sit and needed to sit for a long time. Did Mahomes absolutely need to sit? I don't know. He's talked about how beneficial that year off for him was. Jaden Daniels didn't need to sit. Like, Jaden Daniels was ready to play, clearly. So I don't know where Cam Ward fits on that scale.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be where just because of the offenses in the NFL, like, you had to sit guys basically. I mean, you were a really, really bad franchise a couple decades ago if your rookie started, it was basically very frowned upon in the NFL. And then over time, again, a lot of concepts, there's more back and forth. There's more similarities in some of the concepts. So Jaden Daniels came right in. Like you said, he was great. There are examples of rookies being able to come in. And then there's also rookies who come in and are bad.
Yeah.
But they still get better. Josh Allen, great example. He was not good. It wasn't good. They were terrible. He was bad, and it just kept getting better. But some, you worry about ruining someone's confidence, and that certainly has happened too. So there's not one size that fits all. But I mean, yeah, here you draft him number one based on what we're looking at here. Again, even if you brought in Carson Wentz as your backup or any of the Mac Jones, all the different names that we've talked about, you could buy like that person starting for a few weeks, if need be. Even though people wouldn't have, it would have been like the Colts fans all want Anthony Richardson right away, and they got him. And now, I guess, I don't know, Indy Ben's still excited about like their cornerback signings or something like that. But, it didn't work out well. But, Wesley Clarksville, if we draft Cam Ward and goes out there and starts to get 3 or 4 wins, we're just going to blow everything up again. I don't. If you make the decision to draft Cam Ward, understanding where you're coming from with your roster, that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're signing up for some level of patience and bad product potentially with the idea that you've got your guy, and then the city and the fan base can rally around that and that hope.
I think you should be. But again, with this franchise has taught me to always leave the door open for some rash decisions to be made if it goes that way. Now, look, we talk about that. There's also, like, what if Cam Ward comes in and he's really good, right? I mean, that's part of, like, if you're the Titans looking at this, and Charles brought this up too. Like, you're looking at what Stroud did in year one. You're looking at what Washington did, and Washington's probably the better example, Joe, right? Because we've talked about the Stroud part of this. Like, I think that roster with Houston, with how bad they were for several years prior to that and the picks that they stockpiled, the roster for Houston with the offseason they had with Stroud coming in, I think that team was a little bit better than we probably thought coming into that season, just in terms of a talent standpoint. Like, Washington revamped their team in one offseason, and they signed a bunch of guys to 1-year deals, and then Daniels came in and immediately was ready to go and was good. So, Charles talked about that yesterday. Like, think about having that conversation about Washington a year ago and what that would look like and what our reaction would be if we talked about now Washington being a destination where people want to go play, and that, like, they were able to change the perception of their organization basically in a year. Like, that's what they've done. Like, that's what a high level quarterback can do for you. Like, if it works out the way you hope, Joe, like, that's what a high level quarterback does for you in this league. You can change things immediately.
Yes. And you know, there are some things they had in place already the Titans don't have with their roster. They did have some good talent on D and some good talent at receiver.
Yeah.
You know, that I think that which is really just from years of being bad. And then, you know, again, we've talked about a lot of the kind of plan B free agents that they load up on. And I got a lot of good play out of them for cheap. So it was, but yeah, mostly it comes down to the QB just being special. So, and of course, if you get that, then one, you might win more than everybody thinks. And then also it just completely changes the feeling around that. But you know, you've had Stroud the year before, you had Daniels last year. You look around, that's still look at all the other rookies who have been drafted. It's varying degrees of not nearly that good, and in some cases bad. You know, you've got the guy was convinced he's going to be great, who now starting to look better, Bryce Young, who's basically been to the bottom, discarded, and now trying to fight his way back. I mean, there's still way more failure stories than success stories.
Jared on YouTube says, Joe, that it's time for you to give up the Shador hope for the Titans. That it ain't happening.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, again, I'm not changing that I would pick Shador over Cam Ward. Okay. But I think that that's probably fair. I mean, obviously, we listened to Charles yesterday. Cam, golf, Shador, smaller golf. Everyone else. Someone on the text line thinks they're going to go. Shane says they're going to go Dart. Now, that would be an all-time shocker. Yeah, Jackson Dart, number one. That would be all-timer of a shocker right there.
Cam, you just take a seat, buddy. You're not going at number 1 overall. Here's Jackson Dart. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts to get to on the Cam Ward front. We'll do that. We also will get into the hunt for wide receivers that at this point may be challenging for the Titans to pull off heading into next year. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 the game. 063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a pair of tickets to give away to see Aziz Ansari at the Ryman Auditorium on Thursday, March the 20th. Be caller 3, 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Aziz Ansari at the Ryman Auditorium on March the 20th. Taking your thought on Cam Ward and the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Ben on the text line, Joe, throwing it out there that why would you take Cam Ward right now? You could wait around, and the odds are you're going to get in the top 10 next year, and you can get the quarterback that's way better next year. One thing that I did find interesting on the I told you early in the show, Joe, I was listening to PK's podcast that he was doing yesterday, and he did say that he had a scout tell him, or a personnel member from an organization in the NFL tell him that he would take Arch Manning over Cam Ward right now, without Arch Manning having started a game in Texas, or at least a meaningful game at Texas. He'd take him right now.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well, I mean, this is almost rant worthy. Okay. We've talked about it before. I mean, PK and I have yelled at each other. I said to Ben, so who are the top guys? So he sent me a thing. This is like I don't know. This is from somebody's draft board of like, I don't know. I don't know what the numbers mean, but the four names are Malachi Nelson at UTEP, Lenora Sellers, who's a very fun college quarterback at South Carolina. Nico, right now, Robby, you have the number one pick.
Yeah,
taking Nico or Cam Ward?
Cam Ward. Like, Nico needs to take a huge step next year.
Huge step. I mean, I can see it. There's talent.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on it, but yeah.
No, not right now. My God, no. Arch Manning, that's fine. And some people are enamored with him. He's a great athlete. He can certainly run better than his uncles. He's got the talent. So far, we've seen him look like a young quarterback. He couldn't beat out Quinn Ewers. Again, he's young, so I'm not using that to question whether he'll end up being a great player. But we're going to see this year. And also, as we've talked about a million times, they've said he's staying 4 years at Texas. Obviously, there's no urgent financial situation where he would need to go to the NFL. And I'm sure that the financial situation is pretty good playing for Texas.
Probably so.
So I'm not even counting him next year. I'm waiting to see if he's great. We'll see.
Yeah.
I know he has a great last name and he's talented. Do you know how many talented quarterbacks in college football don't materialize as top NFL prospects, let alone NFL players?
Yeah.
Nico, no, wait. What Nico? We'll see. Talent, yes. Tons of work to do. Lenora Sellers, incredible all-around athlete. I think he's a Heisman guy this year. Is he a pro, an NFL? I don't know. Again, the idea that next year is a way better quarterback class is insane to me. It may end up that way. But right now, with what we know, again, go back 2 years ago, we knew Caleb Williams, who had just won a Heisman, was going to go at the top of the draft. We knew Drake May was going to go at the top of the draft. Didn't know yet that Jaden Daniels was going to do what he did. And that's the thing. Next year, I'm sure there will be a Jaden Daniels.
Sure.
But right now, there is nobody close within universes, galaxies of Caleb Williams and Drake May from 2 years ago. I can't understand why people keep doing this. Can we just replay this at 7:45? I'm now pissed off.
Well, there's that, and there's there are some guys that may get there, right? Like you've named off some of them. You know, some people will say, what about Drew Aller? What about Nussmeier from LSU? By the way,
those guys should be mentioned. Those guys both should be mentioned.
They should, but also both of those guys had the ability to come out this year in this year's draft, and they did not do it. So it kind of goes to show you that they feel like there's more work there left to be done. Again, look, we may end up this time next year, Joe, on March the 14th. Maybe the Titans have already drafted Cam Ward, and it doesn't really matter from their perspective. But we could be talking about, Lenora Sellers is a very highly rated draft prospect. Drew out, this quarterback class is unbelievable. That could happen. But, to act like we know that now, a year out, this is not the class next year where we know that.
No. And here's the example the other way, right? Like we knew Caleb Williams and Drake May, and basically they lived up to it. And, we're going to see in the NFL if they're going to live up to it. I mean, right now I'd hitch my wagon to Jaden Daniels over either of those two guys, right?
Yeah.
But let's go the other way, because a year ago and even early in the season last year, Carson Beck is a top 10 pick. Carson Beck is going to be at the top of the draft. Well, Carson Beck now is at Miami getting his car stolen. Because,
by the way, put him on the list for next year too. I forgot about him.
Yeah, I mean, sure, he's a prospect, but obviously the league, the Karski's talking about his scout, talking about Arch. Great. You know how many people in the league thought Carson Beck was going to be that guy, and then they watched him play last year, like, oh no, he's not that guy.
Right.
It's just we don't know, and so but right now to actually declare that next year's quarterback class is better is insane. And even Kaharski has kind of uttered that, and it's like you do not have a known commodity to be able to say that about.
No, you don't. I will say, like, I think there are more guys,
more possibilities
who could grow into that. Like, there are more possibilities that could happen. But again, I don't know. Like, first off, like we mentioned, let's take Nico. Nico has a ton of work to do. Like, I thought Nico basically from the second half of the Alabama game last year onward got better and looked good. He's still a long way away from being like a surefire first-round draft pick, right? Like, he's much less like number one, top 5 guy. But he's got a lot of physical abilities. He's got a lot of things that you feel great about. But there's a lot that he's still got that's left to learn. Arch Manning, I don't know. Like, Arch Manning got in and he started some games against some crap bump teams when Quinn Ewers was hurt. And then he got in and basically was a wildcat guy. Beyond that, he's going to be the starter this year. Look, I like Arch Manning. I think he's probably going to end up being really good, but I don't know that. I'd like to see him start some games at quarterback before we come away with that conclusion. And I'm with you. I would be stunned if he comes out next year, because that's really not the way they operate. They stay at school all 4 years, and I think that's what he's going to do.
Players can improve. I expect him to improve. But they were so bad when Georgia was kicking their butt at home that Steve Sarkisian said, all right, Carson, or all right, Quinn Ewers, you're out. Arch, get in there. And he was so bad, he's like, crap, I got to go back to Quinn Ewers. And he went back to him for the rest of the year. You got to obviously, you can't have better advisors, in your family. He's got the physical tools. But, yeah, we just don't know.
Yeah, like, I would guess that he's going to be really good, but I don't know that.
Right. And, again, we knew at different times. Look, you can go back in other classes too. Like at this time going into the next fall, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Really Joe Burrow is kind of like Jaden Daniels. Like he took things by storm during that fall. And there could be somebody we're not talking about right now who could all of a sudden be Joe Burrow wasn't being talked about in March of 2019 about being a first round pick, let alone top pick. So that could happen too. You don't know it'll happen.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans to get to. Plus, if they do draft Cam Ward at number 1 overall, who in the world is he throwing the ball to this year? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. So we've talked a lot about Cam Ward at number 1 overall this morning. What else will the Titans do if that's the way they go and that's the way that they're leaning at number 1 overall? How do you help him? How do you get him some players that can help him score touchdowns, put points on the board this season? Now, we know, Joe, that the Titans have addressed their offensive line. They brought in Dan Moore, Kevin Zeitler, J.C. Latham over to the right side. We'll see how effectively they've addressed their offensive line, but they have addressed their offensive line. They've not really addressed wide receiver. They've let NWI walk, which, as Skyler points out on the text line, says the Titans have already failed Cam Ward by letting him walk. Go ahead and fire everybody. So people still very upset about NWI ending up with Miami Dolphins. They have 8 picks as currently slotted here in the NFL draft without any other trade made. They've got obviously number 1. You've got the 35th overall pick in the second round. You have no third-round pick right now. You got 2 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th. That's how your draft slots are currently slotted if you're the Titans. So, what's your chances of finding some impactful skill position players to help Cam Ward if you're drafting him at number 1 overall based on where things currently are? How do you view that, Joe, in terms of the work left to be done to help him if you're drafting him at number 1 overall? And how do you view, based on what's left in free agency at wide receiver, at tight end, whatever position that you want to look at, and the draft, how equipped are the Titans going to be able to actually do that for the remainder of this offseason, in your opinion?
Well, there's not anything that they're going to do that I think really moves the needle in free agency. You certainly have to do something. We've gone through, a lot of these guys, in terms of the free agent. Obviously the top guys were like Godwin and some people like that. I mean, it gets a little bit slim. I'm not even really familiar, like tight end. I do feel like that's something we hardly ever talk about, but can obviously make a huge difference. And, of course, people are going to continue to watch Brock Bowers and think back to the last draft, but it's over. It's too late. But I feel like they need to try to do something, at both spots. Obviously receiver, multiple things at receiver. Who was the top tight end? It was, I guess, Juwan Johnson, and the Saints brought him back, right?
Yeah.
So, but like, who would be the top receiver left right now on the market? I mean, no one immediately comes to mind, which probably, Keenan Allen.
Well,
Amari Cooper is still out there.
Diggs, what ends up happening with him?
Yeah.
Like, there are guys, none of them are going to excite you all that much based on where they are in their career. Like, Lockett's out there. Look, Cooper Kupp's out there until he signs elsewhere. It's looking like he could make a decision today. And like, Seattle is in the mix. I think Dallas is in the mix. There's reporting that the Packers are interested in Cooper Kupp. So there are guys that are out there. None of them are all that exciting. But Joe, I think right now, based on their receiver room, don't you kind of have to sign one of those guys, whether it's a Cooper or a Diggs or you need some bodies in there. And you need some bodies in there that at least have a chance of making some plays for your young quarterback, if that's the way you're going. Like, look, we all know they still need significant help at edge rusher. So I like a lot of guys at edge rusher in this draft. So what do you do, Joe? If you draft Cam Ward number 1 overall, you take whatever the edge rusher would be with your second round pick at 35 overall. You don't have a third round pick. Are you really going to be able to find a wide receiver or two in the 4th or 5th round that come in and make big impacts immediately? I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think that's harder to do. Like you'd be better off trying to find one of those guys in the first or second round, and they just may not be able to do that depending on how the draft board falls.
Right. Yeah. I think you have to. I think TD. Well, obviously have TD on today. I think TD mentioned Elijah Moore, right?
Correct.
Previously,
Yes.
yeah, he's out there too. I mean, I don't hate that idea. Try to give somebody a fresh start and see how that works out. But I think they have to sign at both spots, and then probably just the best available at either or is probably what they'll end up doing at 35. And I think you'll have good options at both of them. But obviously, you can't take both of them. So, like, I don't know how you can plan. And this is not really how it works, but like the idea of like, well, really, let's focus on this one here, and then we'll probably, be looking at the other one at 35. I think you have to try to. I mean, Borgonzi has said it. Try to get people in and fill the holes, and then you whatever your best available is. You would think it would be one of those two positions at 35, but it could be something different.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, again, I'm looking at tight ends here. Again, there's a lot of names at receiver. Tight end like Tyler Conklin. It's interesting, like how slim it is at tight end. I don't know if that's just a random occurrence or if that says something about the position in the NFL. Like, the Broncos signed Evan Ingram for 2 years, 23 mil.
Yeah.
But they're just, again, I mentioned Juwan Johnson. Saints keep him. There's just really nothing going on at that position. And I think I think if the Titans, you mentioned the fourth round or you get in the middle rounds and stuff, I think that's where, it wouldn't be the worst idea to try to get another young tight end. Although, with tight end, there are a lot of like UDFAs who end up at least being good enough to be your third guy. But they're top two guy. It's just, it's not, it's a position that needs to be upgraded.
I would agree. Like, I guess with tight end, at least you have guys on your roster right now that can start. Now, I don't love either one of them. Like, I don't think Wiley and Chig are like the type of starters at tight end that you're going to want moving forward here in terms of the ability to consistently make plays and be a part of the passing game. Like, I think you can upgrade there. You may not be able to this offseason. Like, I'm looking at receiver right now, and I'm saying, all right, well, you got Calvin Ridley. You brought in Van Jefferson the other day, who I do not have high hopes for. We'll see what that ends up looking like. But he's what, like a 5 in this league? So you got that. And you've got Bryce Oliver. Like, that's basically your wide receiver room right now, because I'm not counting Treylon Burks. Like, I don't know how much more often we need to see it with Treylon Burks. I ain't counting Treylon Burks. So, like, you got to go get some guys. I think, the draft and free agency is probably the answer here. But I guess the question is like, what are you actually going to be able to find from a quality standpoint to go in and help your young quarterback if that's the way you're going at number one?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think, I think you'll have good options in the draft, but you got to have more than that. And it's like you could go with the proven older guy, which the Titans have done a lot over the years. Again, you're talking more like the Allen Cooper type things. Diggs is one of those. I still feel like there could be something there.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's all the other stuff. I mean, that might be a Diggs. I'd be more like intrigued by that possibility, or even like an Elijah Moore, younger guy who just hasn't worked out, than I would, I think, for like a Keenan Allen.
I would agree. Like, I don't have a whole lot of interest in Keenan Allen. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. Your thoughts on the skill positions for the Titans. Who would you like to see them attack and address the wide receiver needs, especially this offseason? And should they do it in the draft? Anybody in the draft that catches your eye as well, that they could be available at number 35 overall in the second round? We'll get your thoughts on all that coming up. We will get into the SEC tournament later this hour as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. It's St. Patrick's weekend, and we are celebrating in East Nashville. Come out and join 102.5 The Game in 5 points at Boston Commons for the official Nashville St. Patrick's Day Parade, presented by Aer Lingus, kicking off at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Live Irish music, drink specials, and family fun all day long. 102.5 The Game will be on site from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. with some things to give away. Also, your chance to sign up and win concert tickets as well. So looking forward to that tomorrow. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. We will get into the SEC tournament coming up here in just a few minutes with Tennessee in action later today, taking on Texas. Joe Rexrode has been a trooper covering it all. So we'll get into that a little bit later today. One texter, Joe, says, I would go with Amari Cooper if I were the Titans. Had a down season last year, but he's a great route runner, similar to Ridley. You want receivers who can create space for a young quarterback. What did you make of that in terms of the Amari Cooper part of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could see that. Interesting last year with Amari Cooper, how I thought it was a great pickup and it looked, I thought, pretty good for a while, and then it kind of are you hearing that beeping, or is that just me hearing the beeping?
I do not hear beeping, but
okay, good. All right. Well, then I will soldier through it. That's weird, but yeah, he's somewhat interesting. Again, you'd be going pretty old, but look, at this point, young, old, in between, anybody who can play. Look, Cooper Kupp wasn't that long ago. He was one of the top receivers in the NFL. Sometimes it goes fast on you when you start having health issues in this league, but if you told me that there's still something there, that he could still get past all that and be effective, I could believe that.
I mean, Amari Cooper, he's only 30, which surprises me. I feel like he's older than that, but he's only 30. I think he'll be 31 next year when the season is underway. But you're talking, so in 2023, he had 72 catches for 1,250 yards, 5 touchdowns. And again, 2023 is when Flacco mania took over in the second half of the year, and he was playing really well, and Cleveland got to the playoffs and all that. So obviously Amari Cooper, a big part of that. Last year, I mean, his production was cut by more than half. I mean, he had 44 catches for 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he almost hit the same touchdown total, but only 547 yards, and that was between both of his teams last year, Cleveland and Buffalo. So for whatever reason, he just kind of fell off the cliff last year. So is that a sign of things to come for him? I mean, he played in 14 games, so it's not like he was totally unavailable. He missed a few games last year, but it's weird how he went from a huge reason why Cleveland made the playoffs the year before, along with Joe Flacco, to being almost basically a non-factor with Cleveland and Buffalo last year.
Yeah, and just usually when you see stuff like that, it usually doesn't then, rebound hard the other way, so that one is, again, like you go through all these and you could talk yourself into it, and then you really look deeper and it's like, okay, like Tyler Lockett, I feel like it wasn't that long ago. He was a big time playmaker in this league. You look up and he's 32 years old, Yeah. And so I do like the idea of taking a flyer on a younger player, because sometimes you do see guys just in any position change scenery and maybe it can work out for them. So I'm kind of, usually if TD has a suggestion, I'm like, you know what, that sounds good. I think I'll.
Well, I need to make sure it was TD, because I know Corey Curtis brought it up earlier this week, but we'll get into that with TD.
Yeah, I think it was.
TD has talked about Elijah Moore too, so we'll get into that.
Yeah. Oh, it was Corey, then never mind. I'm out on him. Just kidding, Corey. Just kidding.
Hey, Joe, maybe this is finally the year that Treylon Burks puts everything together. Maybe it's too soon of me to just dismiss him outright.
Would it be? I have dismissed him out of hand and of course, great. I got an idea to save no money to move on from him, but I've dismissed him out of hand, and I know you have more than I have as a factor. Is it possible that the Titans hold a spot for him, say no pressure, back end of the room, Just see if you can stay healthy, answer the bell, get out there, keep working on your craft. And, you're still a young guy, and we're going to not talk you up. We're going to, you're going to have to earn your way up from the back of the room, but you get a spot. If they were to do that, is that absolutely insane or no?
Yes.
Insane. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you. They obviously need to fill in ahead of him. But okay, so people are excited about Bryce Oliver, right? And that's fine. I understand. I understand. And he could end up emerging and doing some things, but I don't see, to me, I don't see that big of a difference. I wouldn't be upset either way if there was one spot left and it went to either Oliver or Treylon Burks.
I guess I wouldn't either, but I don't really have high expectations for Bryce Oliver. He's fine. Can he grow into something? We'll see. I guess the thing I would say on Burks, though, if you're giving him a spot, are you just buying more time until he gets hurt again? It's what he does. He gets hurt. He's going to get hurt again. That's what's happened his entire career. And it sucks for him. But the problem, the problem to me, Joe, with Burks is even when he hasn't been hurt, he's shown you basically nothing. It would be one thing if when he was healthy, he was showing you stuff in an actual game setting, but he's not even doing that. There's too many injuries, and when he's not injured, he's doing nothing in the game. Not a great combo.
Yeah, no, I can't. I mean, I can't disagree. I mean, look, obviously, it's one of those things where it's I've completely dismissed it. And I guess depending on how just barren the room is, you could start to be like, well, one more shot, I guess.
I mean, right now, they may not have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, Will Levis and Treylon Burks, training camp, another connection, I guess we'll have to see. Michael Imazin does point out Tyler Lockett, has been very durable. He says I didn't know that. He says he's missed 3 games during his entire career, fits the mold of the signings. And yeah. But, let's also remember, I believe Tyler Boyd has also been durable, right? Tyler Boyd hasn't been a big injury guy, right?
I believe that is
sometimes
correct.
You're just also not effective anymore. And that's what I wonder with him.
Well, last year, Lockett had 49 catches for 600 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, is that horrible? No. If he could give you that next year, I'd probably take it, depending on what the deal looked like for Tyler Lockett. But he's 32. He's 32. He'll be 33 on September the 28th. What does that look like for him moving into next year? He has been incredibly productive throughout his career. I mean, he had a 4-year stretch from 19 to 23, or excuse me, 22, where he had over 1,000 yards per year. In 23, he had 80 or 79 catches for 894, 49 catches for 600 last year. So, you could still work with that. It doesn't have to be, the same Tyler Lockett that it was in 2019. But what's the price tag? What's the money that Tyler Lockett is going to command out there? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't think much. I wouldn't think it'd be all that much.
I wouldn't either.
Cup is the one where I'm very interested. Yeah, obviously they may move him, but I mean, and try to get something. But what is there a team out there that could really talk themselves in? Would there be actually a market and some serious competition for a Cooper Cup at this point?
And apparently that decision could be coming today on the Cooper Cup front. So we'll see what happens on that front. We will get into the SEC tournament coming up next. Take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Vols in action later today against Texas. We'll have some thoughts on that as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Tune in tonight to 94.9 The Fan for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores take on Auburn on the road. Pregame at 5:45, first pitch at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We'll have Teron Davenport coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll get into all things Titans with him. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode here in a few minutes at 7:45. So looking forward to that as well. It is SEC tournament season here, baby, in Nashville, Tennessee. A wild day yesterday at Bridgestone Arena. Ball's coming up later today. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Right now, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Nate to the program. Nate, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What up, guys? So I'm going to be unpopular with Joe this morning because I have a bit of a college basketball rant. To me, college basketball is becoming too much like college football, where the lines between the pros and the college game are getting blurred every day, if not every game. And to me, it's getting harder to watch. Shooters jumping into players that are standing straight up or jumping straight up and the arms are straight up is not a defensive foul. A walk, Joe, is a walk. You take 2 steps, you take a third, that's a walk. Left is 1, right is 2. Just ask the NFL. 1 foot in bounds is not 2. Replays need to be reviewed by a truck or offsite crew for tournament games to speed them up. I guarantee if all goaltending or clock management in the last minute were reviewed by a truck or offsite crews, then it'd speed the game up. And we're always looking for that. Now, I know this is going to be this is kind of comical, kind of not, but the SEC and the NCAA tournament, I can see where players foul out even in the first half, and teams could potentially have to forfeit games due to not having enough players due to the football-esque officiating in the SEC. Enjoy the games, guys.
Thanks for calling, Nate. Joe, your thoughts?
Well, I think Nate tweeted us about I got to correct him on the walk. I will say that it's funny because we've been sitting there at the SEC tournament. Mitch Light and I have been sitting there, and then Joe Dubin keeps taking pictures of the back of our head.
He does.
And sending texts about them. It's like, are you sick of this shit, Joe? But I will say there've been a few where I'm like, man, that used to be a guaranteed walk in college basketball. I feel like they are a little more lenient on walks, but Nate's not right about the 2 steps. 1 step technically is both feet. 1, 2. If you get the ball in stride 1, 2, 3, so that's 1.5 steps. That is allowed at any level of basketball. That's people call it 3 steps, but it's actually 1.5 steps. 1, 2, 3 with your feet. If you catch it in motion, you can do 1, 2, 3 steps. Now, of course, we also have the Euro step now in basketball, which to me sometimes makes it look like 1, 2, 3, 4
hopping down the floor.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, look, as far as the
look, there are some in the NBA every now and then where it's like they're from the 3-point line on the other side to the basket, they stop dribbling and they just let it go. And it's like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, and of course, that's always been a huge difference in the NBA and college, right?
Yes.
Is the walk. As far as late game stuff, I mean, I think where we're headed is we're gonna be headed toward the challenge system, which is what it needs. You get a challenge in the NBA. If you win it, you get another one. That's what you do in college, and then from then on, you're going to cut down a lot of reviews because of that.
So Tennessee in action later today, Joe. We'll get into that here momentarily. What did you make of the day yesterday with a wild one with Ole Miss and a buzzer beater, which, by the way, the commentator in that game said ball game as soon as the ball went in, and then there was a heave the other way that almost went in, which was awesome. It was good stuff. But what did you make of the day at the SEC tournament yesterday?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the Wednesday and Thursday, it's been pretty ridiculous for Wednesday and Thursday. But yesterday felt like a Friday day, which is what today is. And today, all of a sudden, we got all the 1 seeds out there, But And when I say that, I mean like the 1 seed, the teams that could be 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. You have 4 teams playing today. All of them could be 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I doubt that's ever happened before in a conference tournament. But, Texas A&M, Texas, double overtime, amazing game. Kentucky, Oklahoma, ridiculous. Kentucky completely blows it. And then Otega Owe, who might be my favorite player in the SEC at this point, wins it, going baseline, and it flips it in with his left hand. Missouri looked really good. And then Ole Miss, beats Arkansas in a great game. And you had 3 really good games. You had 3 amazing games, and then Missouri kind of took control of Mississippi State. So it was great. But today is, you got Ole Miss taking a shot at Auburn, Tennessee, and Texas. I think Texas, I have a bracket. I got 14 SEC teams in now. Texas has played its way in for me. Oklahoma's played its way in. Now, both of those teams are still vulnerable. So we'll see. But right now, I got the SEC with 4. You got Missouri, Florida, which should be a really fun game. And then you cap it off with Kentucky, Bama tonight. Be really interested to see what the crowd's like for that. Obviously, Kentucky dominated the arena last night. There were like 9 Oklahoma fans in the place, and 17,000 whatever Kentucky fans. But Bama, I'll be interested to see if they can carve out a little space of their own. You're talking about a great team just coming off a Final Four, and they expect to win that game.
You got Tennessee and Texas later today. Texas coming off a double overtime win yesterday, and they played the day before. So they played 2 straight days here. Tennessee's been sitting around waiting on it. What do you make of that matchup for Tennessee? And how much of an advantage is the rest that they've had compared to what Texas had to do the last 2 days?
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting. Does Texas, a lot of times you see these teams play, and then the team that comes in cold, the higher seed, takes a little time, and these rims have been kind of tight here. And so, could Tennessee be rusty and Texas kind of in a groove? But the fatigue factor usually it hits these teams at some point. These low-seeded teams that have to go, 4 or 5 days. Will it hit Texas today because they had to go double overtime to beat their rival? I mean, tell you what, Texas also didn't have that many people here. Texas A&M had a pretty big crowd yesterday, and boy, were they upset and disappointed that their Aggies lost for the 2nd time this year to Texas. I mean, Rodney Terry really he's a guy one of Rick Barnes' best friends, Rick Barnes' former assistant at Texas. And there's been a lot of talk about his job. I wonder if he's coached himself into safety there and also his team into the NCAA tournament. But, I like Tennessee anyway in that matchup. If Texas is fatigued, then it might actually get ugly.
Did they do the midnight yell for Texas A&M before the game yesterday? Did they stay up the night before on Kyle Field just doing the yell?
I don't know. Or did they do it on Broadway? I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. But, those folks, when they take an L, man, they take it hard, especially when it's to the horns, man. I mean, my goodness, I had to walk through all their fans who were on the floor, and then their band and everything, and cheerleader, they were I was like, oh yeah, that's right, you just lost to Texas. Why are you guys so depressed? Oh yeah, you lost to Texas. Yeah.
That's a different place, man.
That's got to be, yeah.
At A&M.
Yes, it is.
Strange place. How is it that I feel like this is an annual tradition, either in the NCAA tournament or the SEC tournament? You've gotten a lot of FaceTime on TV. You're right behind the commentators on the broadcast. I feel like this happens all the time to you.
It does. It happens in the NCAA tournament sometimes, but the SEC tournament, I feel like they always put my seat right behind them. I don't know, I mean, I understand I'm sexy, but, they could mix it up. They assign new seats every day. So last 2 days, I got seat 10 on row F2, and that is directly in between the announcers. I am totally happy if someone else gets seat 10, so I'm not trying to sit there. I'm not asking for it. It's fun to get texts from random people I haven't talked to in years, like, hey, is that you on TV? I'm like, yeah, it is. Enjoy. Try not to look like a total idiot when the light goes on. The cameraman sits in front of those guys, then the light goes on, and so you're on. It's like, okay, just don't have a dumb expression on your face and pretend to be working hard. That's basically what I do.
When you got somebody as good looking as you got to put them on TV. That's just that's how the rule goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, sex sells. I mean, I understand that. We all understand that. So I'm sure the septuagenarian women with vision issues demographic is really pleased by the
septuagenarian. Way to go.
Thank you.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. TD will be with us at 8 o'clock. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
I'm just sick and tired of our guys getting smashed down there. Smashed!
You've gotten a lot of FaceTime on TV. Like, you're right behind the commentators on the broadcast. I feel like this happens all the time to you.
It happens in the NCAA tournament sometimes, but the SEC tournament, I feel like they always put my seat right behind them. I don't know, I mean, I understand I'm sexy, but, they could mix it up.
Joke!
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours, fresh off of how many hours of sleep do you think you gotten this week so far? Like 7?
Yeah, it's better than that, but yeah, it's quite a week to have this, but then also have, 2 different high schoolers gone on spring break in 2 different locales, one of whom is a senior, doing the tracker. Wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom. What are you doing right now? That's also helped matters. What's going? You going to bed? You gonna go to bed or no? You just out and about kind of right now? What's those phone trackers, man? They really don't help the lack of sleep issue. But it's fine because today's Friday. Gonna head over there right after the show, and it's gonna be awesome. Be there all day, and then I'll sleep in tomorrow to some extent. So that'll help make up for it. I did want to get to one hoops thing here because Nate also asked if the Vols lose today, do they get bumped up the 2 line? 0 chance. The Tennessee is extremely safe as a 2 seed. They will not move down from 2 seed. Michigan State will not move down from 2 seed. I got Bama as a 2. They would not move down. Those are locked in 2s. I think Texas Tech maybe. Basically, it's pretty much if you're on the 2 line, you could get to the 1. You're not going to the 3. There's a pretty big gap actually in this bracket right now between the 2s and the 3s. So Tennessee is an easy, guaranteed 2. If they end up ahead of Alabama, they're going to be in Lexington next week. If they end up behind Alabama on the true seed line, then they're probably going to be. Well, if they're behind Florida too, then Tennessee probably will be in Cleveland next week. But they could also be in Raleigh. So Raleigh, Lexington, Cleveland, one of those 3 spots. But no, they're a 2 seed at worst. And if Bama and Florida lose today and Tennessee wins today, now you can really start talking about going after a 1 seed. You need Auburn to win today. Yeah. And you need to beat Auburn tomorrow. You need to beat the number 1 overall seed on a neutral court tomorrow in the semifinals. And if you do that, you could be in line to get the first number 1 seed in program history. But I did want to, I have to do this because I just tweeted at this person. This is actually one of the most amazing things to me ever because so we've talked this week about the whole NWI thing. When did we, I had you guys read the piece because Kaharski, just screams inaccuracies into the air.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So that, right. But no, I'm saying it was 2021. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So 4 years. 4 years ago, a source in the Titans organization told me that they loved Nick Westbrook-Akine, that they were letting Corey Davis go. And that part of the reason was, they really like this kid. They think that he's going to be a factor. And, again, there were other factors too. But basically, what I was told was what Corey Davis did last year, which again was the 2020 season, was it's the easiest job ever. No one paid any attention to him all year. And it turned out to be pretty right on him. Actually, on both, right? Westbrook-Akine was not as good as Corey Davis at his best, but he ended up being a contributing part of the room. That's all that it was. 4 years ago. So that happened, and then we basically, that next training camp, every time NWI made a play, all the other reporters oh, Rexrode's your guy, right? It's been a joke for 4 years, right? Yeah. Now I'm trying to find this. If I reply to someone, can I not find this in my mentions?
I found it. I can read it if you want me to.
Okay. Yeah, but is that a change? If I replied to someone,
I don't know. Maybe you muted the guy.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. If you have his tweet, please read it and read his name too, because he sounds like a genius too.
It's from KC Mack. Says, preach, PK, because this is responding to PK's tweet about you a couple days ago, where it's like, Rexrode started the NWI hype train, and he's been talking about it ever since. So KC Mack says, preach, PK. Joe was NWI's biggest fan in the media. I nearly ran off the road on his takes the Titans should look to get more out of NWI in the morning. NWI never cracked 500 yards in a season here. Ladd McConkey, a rookie, 1,149 yards last year. Way better than NWI has been here.
This guy missed the joke for 4 straight years. Do you know how stupid you have to be? And I have no problem calling anyone who just has some random fake account on Twitter stupid.
KC Mack.
I mean, 90% of them are probably among the dumbest humans in the history of the earth. 4 years, you didn't get the joke? 4 years. We had him on, and it was like we were made fun of me getting a restraining order. Like, it's been a joke for 4 years. You actually thought that I was like, oh, NWI, oh, my God, he should be a starter. He should be wide receiver 1. Like, you actually, for 4 years, didn't get the joke. I'm blown away, man, because it seems like you listened, right? Like, if it was like someone parachuting in and you heard it one time, like, wait, what's he talking about? NWI, huh? But like, it seems like this is someone who actually heard us joking about this for 4 years and never got it. How?
Hey, NWI never came back on the show after that, huh?
Well, he didn't. I don't know that we asked him, but I mean, still, like, it was kind of one of those things. Like, yeah, we'll just leave that alone now.
It's like, wow, that went really well. It wasn't awkward at all.
It was a great moment of awkwardness. But yeah, like, again, like anytime something happened with him, TD or Pete K or Glennon, Teresa, whatever, they go, oh yeah, there's your guy, Rex. Yes, all right, NWI, yay. The Austin Stanley got me a little NWI like pin, like I was a proud parent. Again, it's like 4 years of joking, and it's like that Rexrode, he thinks he's so good. We need a sarcasm button on that app, but also just, I guess, in life, like in subliminal, like sarcasm, whisper,
measuring cheek size.
Maybe a joke to you, but we all know that you were serious in your love for NWI at the end of the day. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. TD will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Titans and NFL free agency with him. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
ESPN's Teron Davenport talking Titans now on Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week here on Robby and Rexrode. We head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, host of Talking with TD to the program. TD, good morning. How we doing?
Hey, good morning. What's going on, fellas?
Not a lot, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us today. So, TD, it certainly looks like from the outside looking in, this is shaping up for Cam Ward to be drafted number 1 overall by the Titans based on the way that this thing has gone here. So, number one, I guess, do you agree with that? And number two, what do you make of the signing yesterday to bring Brandon Allen in as what I assume will be the backup to Cam Ward if it plays out that way?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And, you know, I'm sitting out back, and it sounds like the birds want to be a part of this show, too. So excuse their chirping.
Hey, we welcome that.
Listen, when you look at the signing with Brandon Allen, I mean, this is the guy who has, 10 career starts in 6 years. This is a guy who, you know, hasn't even thrown for over 1,000 yards yet in a year. It's pretty clear that Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, Bo Hardegree, like, their jobs are really going to depend on what happens this year. So I highly doubt they green light and they go along with, you know, that guy coming in and being the quarterback. And then we saw what happened with Will Levis last year. So, you know, those are things to consider. And you look at Cam Ward and him, you know, impressing them in the meetings and everything along those lines. So, yeah, it does point to that.
So on the Brandon Allen aspect of it, TD, what's the upside of him as the backup? What's the case for him why do you think they chose him?
Yeah, I think it's a good move if you're looking at it from solely a backup perspective. And here's why. He spent years with Brian Callahan. 3 years, 2020 to 2022? Guess what they did in 2020? They brought in a young quarterback by the name of Joe Burrow, right? And Brandon Allen was able to be, you know, kind of a veteran there for him and be someone that, not necessarily a veteran, because I think it was a year 2 or 3 for him, but nevertheless, he was a guy who has already gone through the whole let's help this quarterback learn the offense process, right? So the familiarity is there, you know what I mean? And I think when you look at that and going through the process again with Cam Ward, I think that could help the development. This move tells you, though, they draft Cam Ward, you know who's under center right from the rip, and it's going to be Cam Ward.
So, TD, to that point, you know, also, if you draft Cam Ward at number 1 overall, that means you're not trading back, you're not picking up more picks, and I'm looking at wide receiver right now, and there's still some guys out there, so we'll see, you know, how involved the Titans get. But you got Calvin Ridley, you got Bryce Oliver, you got Treylon Burks coming off an ACL. You got Van Jefferson, who you brought in the other day. It's not great right now in terms of the room. So what do you make of the work left to do on that front? And how much do you think they can adequately address that given what's left out there in free agency? And if you're not trading back in the draft, not having a 3rd round pick?
Yeah, I think, you know, the key is not trading off the first. They need to look at some options trading off the second. And I think they kind of done that. And I'm talking about pick 35. I think they've kind of done that because you look at just the holes that I'm not going to say they scrambled to fill, but the holes that they've, you know, built with these 1-year deals, it kind of bought them time if they want to bring in some young players. You have guys in the meantime with Draymond Jones, who I think, I think he's going to be a really good signing. And you turn around and you have him re-up next year, in my opinion. But, you know, to bring it to the point about the free agent receivers, I think when you look at the guys that are left, you know, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Stephon Diggs, these are all, you know, we were talking about free agency 3 years ago. It's like, wow, there's a lot of options. But I think, you know, when you look at the ages, it doesn't match where the Titans are right now. So I highly doubt that they do anything from that perspective. Elijah Moore is a guy that you could look at, but I really think that if they go ahead and draft Cam Ward, they're going to somewhere along the line bring in Xavier Restrepo. Because he and Cam Ward, you know, they were roommates. They were guys that, you know, that's who Cam Ward gravitated towards first. And you even see it in the film. I mean, a lot of times he's like, hey, man, I know Xavier's over there. I'm gonna just throw him the ball. And that's what happens. So, there's things that they could do. You look at this draft, like I said, they come down off of 35. I mean, you got, Jalen Noel, who is an outstanding player, a catch and run guy. You watch the Iowa State film, he's the one that stands out, although a lot of people are high on Jaden Higgins as well. But, for what the Titans need, Jalen Noel is a guy. You look at Savion Williams. I know he didn't really do much at the combine, but, I mean, look, that's a Cordero Patterson clone. You look at talking Tennessee receivers. You look at Dante Thornton. I'm telling you, Dante Thornton is a guy. Like if the Titans aren't on him, I don't know what they're doing, because he's probably one of the best matching X receivers for what they need to do, and that stretch the field and have a guy that could be a threat to catch the ball and run. And that 4.3 that he ran at 6'5", 210 pounds or whatever he was, it shows on film.
Got to stay healthy, but yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, when he's out there and he's right, he can fly. So TD on Cam Ward, do you and this apparent plan that looks pretty transparent at this point? Do you feel like this was, because it does feel like a shift, right? Pretty significant shift. Was it as simple as like he blew them away especially on the visit, or do you think this is like more a gradual thing where people keep going back and forth, talking, going over the film, and even just looking at just the landscape and coming to this conclusion?
Well, these guys appear to be very heavily influenced by meetings, right? And I remember after, they met with Shador and talking to them, like, man, it was like they met a new girlfriend, you know what I mean? And I get it, because Shador is very charming, very, good in the meetings, right? And I think the thing with Cam is all along they felt that he was the better talent, so to speak, but they wanted to see how he would be in the interviews. I think that really was the case, and it was just kind of a gradual build-up, boom, the interview. And the Tigers weren't the only ones that got blown away by Cam Ward. I mean, there were other teams that got blown. The Browns did also, and then you also look at, even his podium session at the Combine. A lot of us walked away from there like, I tell you what, man, that dude tried to lead me, I'm going to follow. You know what I mean? So he does have that in-person presence, and I think that did a good job. And then you go back and you watch the film. Obviously there's mistakes. It's littered with mistakes. Holding the ball too long sometimes when not necessary. The arrogant arm throws. It's littered with mistakes. But there's so much upside, and I think that's really what everyone is looking at.
So TD, as we sit here today on March the 14th, how much do you think the Titans have upgraded their offensive line with Dane Moore Jr., J.C. Latham moving to the right, Kevin Zeitler coming in? How much progress do you feel like they've made in that area?
Man, listen, I liken it too. So last month, January, I traded the Camaro in for a Corvette C8. That's what the Titans did, man. Like it's a huge upgrade what they've done. Kevin Zeitler, like, people don't realize that dude right there, that's a major signing. Even though it's only a 1-year deal, that is a major signing. And then I think you look at Dan Moore Jr., I still am a little skeptical about the amount of the deal and flipping J.C. Latham to the other side. But, I mean, look, if that thing works, you got a left tackle that's solid, and then you got the right tackle position that gave up 29 sacks last year, the most by any right tackle group last year. You got that upgraded too. And then that is just, going to help upgrade Skoronski, you know what I mean? And we'll see what happens with Cushenberry if he's able to go right from the start. So, yeah, they upgraded tremendously, and that's just great for whoever's behind the offensive line, whether it's Will Levis, Brandon Allen, or Cam Ward.
See, the difference is they weren't a Camaro before; they were like a Pinto before. But I like the analogy.
That's like going from a Chevy Corsica up to the, you know what I mean?
So TD, Cam comes in, and we've been talking all off season. I know on this program about Brian Callahan. I mean, I still look at the improvement in the offensive line. Hopefully, it's significant. We're going to find out. They still have a lot of holes to fill. I mean, I could certainly see, one, a rookie QB struggling but showing promise, and I could see this team losing a lot more games than it wins. Drafting a rookie, do you think that gives more runway to Brian Callahan to not be under like all this pressure to like, dramatically change the bottom line of W's and L's this year?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think it changes the patience and the lack of patience, rather, or the emotional approach, or even the reactionary way that Amy Adams Strong goes about owning the team. I mean, we've seen, like, she could be emotional and very reactionary. Look at John Robinson being fired. The Mike Vrabel thing, I think, was kind of a build up, but Rand Carthon being, that was in the most. Somebody had to pay, and so boom. You know what I mean? It was like Rexrode. Remember, B.I.G. had the song "Somebody Got to Die." That's what was the case after this year. So I don't think it really buys Callahan any more time. And as a coach, you coach every day under the premise that your job's on the line anyway. So I think he's going to approach it the same regardless. But I'll say this, man. When that schedule comes out and that Patriots game, when Mike Vrabel and the crew, Titans North, comes down to Nissan Stadium, man, listen, I don't know what they're going to have to do, but they better do something, because that is a game that they absolutely cannot lose.
Yep, it's
No
exactly
doubt.
right. No doubt about that. TD, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us today. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, we'll be at Jake Lyman and I 2 to 6. We'll be at Assembly Hall, filling in for Stillman. So yeah, get some real talk.
There we go.
Absolutely. Be tuned into that starting at 2:00 today. TD with us every Friday morning on the program at 8:00. We'll react to what TD had to say. Take your thoughts on the Titans. We've got weekend winners coming up at 8:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Friday morning. Appreciate TD for being with us in the last segment. We'll take your thoughts on the Titans at 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Joe, as we talked about with TD, Brandon Allen signed at quarterback yesterday for the Titans. Mike Garafolo putting it out there that apparently there was some interest from the Titans on bringing back Mason Rudolph. He ends up signing a 2-year deal in Pittsburgh to go back to the Steelers yesterday. So Brandon Allen is the choice. And Joe, with a quarterback room that currently features Brandon Allen and Will Levis, at this point, it's hard to imagine this going anywhere of a different direction other than Cam Ward at number 1 overall for the Tennessee Titans. And if that's the case, you're talking about a rookie quarterback. You're not trading back from number 1 there. Interesting what TD threw out there in the last segment. How much interest would there be on the Titans front of being able to trade back at number 35? Could you collect some more picks that way? And that kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier of if you're not trading the number 1 overall pick and you're taking Cam Ward, there goes the trade back option to collect a ton of draft capital. Could you trade back at 35 and pick up some more picks and maybe address some needs at wide receiver and edge rusher that way?
Yeah, there's that. I think the thing that really I don't know if it surprised me, but I guess I hope TD's wrong is the whole Callahan thing. You know, again, I'm not saying that the drafting the QB just completely changes the math on everything. And now, you know, whatever, you give this guy 4 years, no matter what. Not saying that, but if it's truly as precarious for Brian Callahan as that, then like you're already starting out and putting a rookie potentially into a bad spot. You know, again, I'm not, you know, like sometimes you have to fire people, you know, you have to fire coaches, quarterbacks deal with new OCs, new offenses, new coaches. This happens. But like, I feel like if this is your strategy, part of your strategy also should be internally take it away from Brian Callahan. When everybody else is discussing it, you know, this front office and everything, like you are now saying, okay, Brian Callahan, this is your quarterback. We're giving this quarterback to this coach. We're going to pull the rug out from under him. Now, I understand what TD is saying. Like you don't know it's unpredictable with what Amy Adams Strunk will do. But I would hope the front office strategy, and I guess just hoping ownership doesn't swoop in and blow it up, would be, okay, well, then we're judging more on, you know, of course, you're judging on quality of play and a lot of different factors of being a CEO and a head coach. But number 1 on how does Cam Ward get along with our coach? How does our coach develop Cam Ward? Do they have a partnership that can be productive in years to come as we do get better, as we build this roster and have a team that's more competitive? If that's not your strategy and it's just kind of like, yeah, this coach is probably lame duck, but we'll bring in Cam and then we'll get a better coach next year. I just think that's totally misserving your rookie quarterback.
I would agree with that. Although I will say, like, still he did say when all the Rand Carthon stuff went down that he had heard that Breaker wanted to move on from Callahan then. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to go down on that front. Like, I guess.
But even if that's the case, they didn't know what they were going to do at quarterback. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. But I guess if you're approaching it from that standpoint, and I agree totally with TD, like trying to sit here and predict what Amy Adams Strunk is going to do is, I mean, I have no idea. Like, I think he's absolutely right. I'm very interested to see when this Patriots game happens, because if they get like embarrassed by Mike Vrabel, it could be, you know, just an absolute terror in that organization the next day. I wonder, like, bottom line wise, I think we all understand that barring Cam Ward coming in and playing like Jaden Daniels last year, it's probably not going to be a great year for the Titans. Let's say Cam Ward's your pick. He comes in and he shows some promise and improves as the year goes on. I'll probably take that, like, if I'm the Titans. But based on the rest of their roster right now, like, they're not going to be a good football team. So, like, how does that influence the way you view Callahan if you're Borgonzi, Brinker, leaving the Amy Adams Strunk part of it out of it? Because, like I said, it's impossible to predict the way she's going to react. But, like, the expectation heading into this year, I would think, particularly drafting a rookie quarterback with the holes you've got on your roster, is going to be pretty low.
Yeah. So it's him. It's like, look, just like TD said, and this is where I am like, I just, again, Levis and a lot of the guys who have a lot of these mistakes. This is where I was kind of with Cam. We're like, I just think I'm just going to stay away from this guy. Like he said, it's littered with like these, like just the things that you can do in college football and get away with, you absolutely can't in the NFL. I mean, look, of course, Cam Ward, I'm sure, knows this. They've talked through it, and it's like, yeah, well, here, you have to be on schedule more, all this stuff. I still think it's hard to break someone of habits like that. If that happens, right, and you see you see like the talent showing, but also a lot less of the just weird, risky plays, then I think you have to give credit to Brian Callahan. Okay, so you do that, then you go 5-12. That's you're still going to fire him if you've had like a promising start on that partnership. I don't know why you want to start the partnership if you don't have any chance really of continuing it unless you have some shockingly good year in wins and losses.
We'll have weekend winners coming up next. Busy weekend to get into on the basketball front. Preds in action this weekend as well. We'll get into all that. Make sure you tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game for updates of the SEC men's basketball tournament all day today, presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by Guinness, thenewcumberland.com, Volunteer Hose and Gasket, and Sloan's Motorcycle and ATV. We'll have weekend winners next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
It's time to pick some winners. We hope. Robby and Rexrode have weekend winners for you. Now
On ESPN
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
On Robby and Rexrode, the SEC tournament underway in our city. Preds in action in California. This weekend, we got a lot to get into on that front. We'll take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. All three of us going 3-3 in the competition last week, Joe. Me and you did not pick up our locks. You got screwed by the Vols last weekend. Nick Keyser did pick up his lock, which brings the overall standings. Robbie Stanley, 10-8, 2-1 on my locks, 12 points. Joe Rexrode, 9-9, 2-1 on his locks, 11 points. Nick Keyser, 8-10, 2-1 on his locks, 10 points. So right there all together in the standings as we begin play here today. We begin with Tennessee and Texas coming up this afternoon in the SEC tournament. Vols a 9.5-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook. I'll start with this one. Give me Tennessee. I think the fatigue for Texas catches up to them today. I think Tennessee pulls away late in this one, and they win by 11 points. So I'll go the Vols minus 9.5. Joe Rexrode, Tennessee favored by 9.5.
Oh, man, it's tough because Texas is still fighting for its NCAA life. And it's just like the question of, like, will they be fatigued? I think their D's playing really well. They got length. If it was 10.5, I think I'd pick the Longhorns, but I'll go with the Vols.
Going with Tennessee minus the 9.5. Nick Keyser, Tennessee favored by 9.5.
Make it a clean sweep. I'm going with Tennessee as well. Hope that's not a bad omen. Sometimes it has been on this program, but I'm going with the Vols this evening.
That may not bode well for Rick Barnes and company. We'll see how that plays out. Joe, later tonight, the Predators taking on the Anaheim Ducks. All of a sudden, Predators are red hot. They've won four games in a row. Steven Stamkos can't stop scoring. So, Joe, we begin with you. Who you got between the Preds and the Anaheim Ducks tonight?
Yeah, I got the Preds continuing to screw it up. Win.
Keyser, Preds and Ducks tonight.
Yep, they win 5 in a row.
Give me the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim says no more. We're putting an end to this nonsense. The Predators lose on the road in a hard-fought contest. I think overtime tonight. The Anaheim Ducks get the win in overtime against the Predators. Preds back at it tomorrow, Joe. The second half of a back-to-back, taking on the LA Kings. Nick, we begin with you on this one. Preds and Kings tomorrow.
That's where I think they falter. Their win streak goes to 5, but then it falls in Los Angeles. I know Pete Weber's on the road for this trip. So, Pete, sorry, but the road trip will end in a loss.
I will also go with the LA Kings in this matchup. So I'm having the Predators getting swept in Southern California this weekend. Rexrode, Preds and Kings.
Yes, I'm also going Kings here. And don't worry, Nick. You know, Pete was the Kings play-by-play guy in like 1978.
I'm aware.
We move to the individual portion of the program. Joe Rexrode, your first individual selection.
Yeah, first game of the day is Ole Miss Auburn. Auburn, number 1 overall seed, SEC champion, minus 12.5. Give me Ole Miss and make it my lock.
Guarantee.
I think Auburn will survive this game. I think Auburn will squeak by, but Ole Miss is playing some good ball. They got the feel for things. Auburn has kind of been wobbling lately anyway, a little bit banged up, and I think they're going to find themselves in a real battle today.
Nick Keyser, your first individual selection.
I'm picking the same game, but I want to get a check on this, Robbie. I have 11.5 as Auburn as the favorite. Is that correct?
I guess it just depends on where you're looking. I can pull it up on the FanDuel Sportsbook real quick, and it says 12.5.
Oh, wow. I guess it changed in the last hour because that's when I made my picks, writing them down. Wow. But I'm still going with Auburn tonight. My brother's college, but I've been watching them closely this year. I'm going with the Tigers in this one.
So now Nick's making up lines. Oh, we got to watch this.
I'm not making up lines. It changed in an hour. Give me a break, Boomer.
We got to watch it. Auburn minus the 12.5 against Ole Miss. Give me the Cleveland Cavaliers minus 2 against the Memphis Grizzlies. On the road for Cleveland, so a challenge there. It could be a great game tonight between the Cavs and the Grizzlies, but I'll go Cleveland minus the 2 against the Grizzlies. coming up. Joe Rexrode, your second individual selection.
Big, it's an incredible day of basketball. I mean, like the games there's absurdly good games all over the country. Marquette, St. John's in the Big East. St. John's -4.5. Marquette did beat Xavier yesterday. I think St. John's ends up winning this game by about 8 to 10 points and covers. Give me St. John's -4.5.
Well, with St. John's -4.5. Keezer, your second individual selection.
Yeah, a little bit of Conference USA action. It was a crazy one last night between Middle Tennessee and La Tech, but I'm going to be going with Middle Tennessee this afternoon. They are +1.5 over Jacksonville State. That's where I'm going.
Going with MTSU +1.5 against Jacksonville State. Give me the Colorado Avalanche -1.5 on the road against the Calgary Flames. Colorado, when they're on an absolute wagon, I think they're going to win by 4 goals tonight against Calgary on the road. Give me Colorado -1.5. Nick Keezer, your final individual selection.
Yeah, I'm going to stick over in college basketball. I know that the Fighting Jarrett Stillmans are facing Clemson this afternoon. Clemson is a 1.5 point favorite, but I'm going with the Cardinals, fellas. Give me Louisville.
Going Louisville +1.5 against Clemson. What was your lock, Keezer?
My lock was the Auburn game.
There you go. Locking down on Auburn against Ole Miss. Joe Rexrode, your final individual selection.
Yep, Chucky Hepburn with a huge shot for the Cards yesterday. Huge game for MTSU, no doubt against Jacksonville State. Huge game. I'm going to go Big Ten. Purdue, Michigan. Michigan's getting 2.5. Purdue had to survive USC last night, but I like them to carry that over and beat Michigan by more than 2.5. Give me Purdue -2.5.
Going Purdue -2.5 against Michigan in the Big Ten. Give me the Boston Celtics -8 against my beloved Miami Heat. Boston still hates the Heat, and the Heat aren't any good. So I think the Celtics are going to put it on them. Give me the Celtics -8 on the road against the Miami Heat. That's what I'm going with on that one. So I've got the Cavs -2 against the Grizzlies locked down. You both have the Auburn Ole Miss game locked down, just in different outcomes there. So we'll see how that goes.
Haven't had too many opposing locks. I've had that probably a couple times, but not too often. That'll be interesting.
I'm now very worried about Tennessee later today, Joe, with all three of us taking the balls -9.5. Texas has generated some momentum, and it is always interesting this time of year. How much do you weigh the fatigue factor of them having to play the last 2 days, and how much do you weigh in the momentum of picking up 2 big wins and continuing to play just day after day, and how that affects the way that you're going?
Yeah. Well, if they didn't go 2 overtimes against their rival yesterday, I'd be looking at this as an upset special kind of game. But man, that's got to take its toll. Yeah, and there's so much emotion in Texas A&M too. So you would think it would affect them. Now, Trey Johnson, the freshman for Texas, he's going to be a lottery pick. He had a rough shooting day yesterday. He has those sometimes. He'll go nuts, and then he'll have, I think he had like an 0 for 14 day a couple weeks ago. I mean, I think he was like 7 for 20 maybe yesterday. So, Tennessee, obviously, he's a defensive priority. You can't let him get cooking. You would think those legs would be tired. And so the outside shots for Texas you'd see some front rimming today.
Rexrode, Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler off to a good start at the Players Championship. Your thoughts on what you've seen from those two?
Yeah. I feel like Rory, I think maybe he needs to switch to the 8-iron from the 7-iron. But other than that, I have no quibbles with what he's doing so far. I'm really impressed.
Yep, very well said. We'll wrap things up on the program coming up next. It is time for Pred's Pick to Click. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. If you guess the goal scorer for the Predators tonight, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that. Coming up next, wrap up with our final thoughts on this weekend in the SEC tournament and for the Tennessee Titans in free agency. All that coming up. This week's Nashville's Best Deal, Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar. Just in time for the SEC tournament. Score half off a $30 gift card and enjoy their award-winning pizza and handcrafted beverages. Visit them in Nashville, Spring Hill, or Murfreesboro. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals while supplies last. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. can't not be the sponsor. It is time for Pred's Pick to Click here on Robby and Rexrode. Pred's in action tonight, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. A standings update in the competition. Rexrode continuing to just run away with this. He's scoring every game. He's got 15 correct answers. The listeners on the board last time as well. They're at 10. I remain at 7. Keyser remains at 4. So Rexrode he's like a machine. He's an offensive machine in this competition. With that in mind, let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Colton to the program. Colton, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
Good morning, guys. How are you? I'm going to go with Philip Forsberg this Friday morning.
Going with Philip Forsberg. Colton, appreciate the call, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You as well. Forsberg off the board. Joe, I'm up first today. He's been scoring like crazy lately. He's putting the points up right now on the 4-game winning streak. Give me Steven Stamkos, which is probably bad news for Steven Stamkos that I've selected him. But Forsberg and Stamkos off the board. Keyser, your pick to click.
Yeah, I'll go with Jonathan Marchessault, the last guy that I hit with that was not Stamkos.
When was that? In November?
That was back on December 17th.
You haven't hit one in the 2025 calendar year?
Yes, I actually have. I hit on it against the Sharks back on January 21st.
Okay, all right. So
Yep.
you're due, is what you're saying.
Very due, yes.
Rexrode's face when you said that was pretty awesome. All right, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault off the board. Rexrode, your pick to click.
Colton Sissons.
I like it. Congratulations to Colton Sissons on his impending hat trick tonight.
Exactly.
At the Rexrode has selected him. Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, Sissons, the selections in Pred's pick to click. Joe, beyond the obvious of the Vols, what do you have your eye on in the SEC tournament coming up today?
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, Auburn is I'm very interested to watch Auburn and how they come out. Chad Baker-Mazara was ejected from the last game, elbow in the back of the head against Alabama. He was ejected in the first few minutes last year in the NCAA tournament against Yale. He's a tremendous player, special player, huge part of their success. Also can obviously get a little emotional and make some bad decisions. And they've got potential to win this whole thing. And they've got to keep things together and get back to playing their best basketball. So really interested to see how they come out today. And then the second session is really, Florida, Missouri should be a high flying, up and down, great game to watch. And same with Kentucky, Alabama. I mean, my gosh, Kentucky, Alabama. I expect it to be like in the low hundreds for both teams. It probably won't be, as they'll miss shots. But even if they have a bad shooting, it's going to be like 82-80. It's going to be a ton of fun. So the second sessions are probably the more aesthetically pleasing basketball. Another thing to watch is Mark Mitchell from Missouri hurt his knee, and Lamont Butler from Kentucky re-injured his shoulder. And they're going to have a hard time if they have no point guards in the NCAA tournament. So that's a huge thing to keep an eye on today too.
So let me ask you this, and this is not in the SEC tournament, but Cooper Flagg, if his injury is significant and he's out for a long period of time, how big a deal is that, not only for Duke, but for the seeding process and for their chances moving forward here?
Well, I think the seeding thing got taken care of yesterday when the x-rays were negative, because you can't, the big example, we were talking about this yesterday in press. So the big example of this is the year 2000. Cincinnati was made, they were going to be a number one seed for sure. Kenyon Martin breaks his leg in the Conference USA tournament, and they get dropped to a 2 seed. They were not a 2 seed by profile, but they got dropped because they're just not the same team without Kenyon Martin. Even if, Cooper Flagg may not be available next weekend. That is certainly possible. But I expect Duke to be a 1 seed regardless. Can they survive a weekend in the NCAA tournament without Cooper Flagg? They got a lot of other talent. They have a lot of other talented guys. But, like that second game next weekend, against an 8 or a 9, like UConn, a Memphis, something like that. Tell you what, man, it could be a real problem for them. And we'll see. It looked awful. He's in a wheelchair and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. X-rays negative is great news, but is a week enough time? Is 10 days enough time so maybe he could get there for that second game? I don't know. I mean, certainly this is tough for Duke and him.
Hey, so by the time we come back around on Monday to the show, do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to figure out where he's playing football, or is he just going to hold this thing up for another week here?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you're the Steelers, do you at some point, is this not kind of a signal to you? Like, you know what? Maybe just don't. I mean, I understand the alternatives aren't attractive. I get that. I mean, run it back with Russ. Short of that, what are we talking about? Are we talking about, actually, let's put our chips on the table and move up and draft one of these quarterbacks?
Jameis.
Yeah, maybe James. Could they, an interesting idea. There's all this talk, and Charles had it on our show yesterday about the Browns.
Yep.
What about the Steelers? Could the Steelers get in there? I mean, the Falcons would love that. The Steelers and Browns are both fighting each other to try to trade for Kirk Cousins. If I'm Arthur Smith, I'm like, please give me Kirk Cousins over these options that I have right now. And again, if Rodgers is on board and it's all good, and it's like, you know what, Rodgers and Tomlin have a respect. He's going to come in here and sort of, he's not going to be Mr. Sideshow, but he already is. He's being Mr. Sideshow before it happens. I'd have early pre-buyer's remorse if I were the Steelers right now.
And there's still in the backdrop, like the idea that playing for Minnesota is very intriguing to Rodgers. Like, I just wonder what the holdup is. Is there a money dispute between him and Pittsburgh? Like, is he still trying to determine if he actually really wants to play football or not? Like, what does this all sound like? Like, I feel like the football part of this probably was determined a while ago when he was like begging the New York Jets not to release him, and then they ended up doing it. So it sounds like he still wants to play. So I wonder what the holdup is, and if it's as simple as money, or is he weighing an option? Like, is Minnesota actually interested in him?
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. I mean, again, if I was Minnesota, I guess I might, look back and say, okay, then let's just do Darnold. Tag Darnold. I get it. $40 million obviously is above market for him, but regardless, that would be really interesting. I can't buy any like uncertainty about playing right now means the money's not there, and I think that's what it is. So, and yes, people are right. Like, Rodgers has all the money in the world, but there's also a certain level of like a respect level that you probably expect if you're him, right? Based on what you've done. And you could point to and say, I mean, I played well last year, but I don't know. I get that, but I still, if I'm the Steelers, just the whole thing just seems like it's not going to go well. And that could be the thing that finally, puts Mike Tomlin in danger of that job.
Hope everybody has a great weekend. That does it for us here on the program today. Enjoy the SEC tournament. We'll be back Monday morning. Jason Big Joe coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.